And we're live with another edition of Botha Rants, and I am your host, Sophia Botha. Bit of housekeeping first. I've recorded an interview with Jane Fay, the trans activist and journalist. I'm hoping to get around to editing and posting it on Sunday. However, it's going to be a bit of a job because I went off on one. And I've got to edit a couple of bits out which might otherwise get me sued. And I don't want to be sued. Anyways, we start with the usual. So yes, please do follow me on Twitter. Still hoping to get to 4,000 followers by the end of February, as I have said numerous times before. I will pretty much follow anyone back as long as they're not a Nazi or a TERF or somebody wanting to sell me something. Always avoid following people who say they're into affiliate marketing on their bio. Also remember that you can support me on Patreon. It really would help me do more with this channel. Source stories and get to events when all this COVID bullshit is all over and done with. There is also a PayPal link down below if you want to give me a one-off donation. Please somebody, could they click on it and make sure it works, because I actually don't know if it works. Anyways, tonight we have a guest with us. You there, Kimmy?
Yes, I am.
Cool.
I am indeed here. Hello.
Hello. For those who don't know, that is the voice of Kim Justice.
Hello.
Retro gamer, and also happens to be my fiance.
Yes, there's no bias here at all, you know, no collusion or anything.
Okay, this is Kimmy's YouTube.
That's not my Twitch. That's Wee Claire's Twitch because I'm hosting her.
Fuck.
Although do follow Wee Claire. She's a very good streamer. She's from Glasgow.
Right. Okay. This is was it twitch.com?
Yeah, twitch.tv/Kim_Justice is where I do things, and also here on YouTube and Patreon and various other places.
Cool.
I'm around.
Cool. So I've got Kimmy on to basically give her thoughts on a couple of stories which are of an interest to her. Now, a few people have asked me why it is I've not done a response to Abigail Thorne coming out, otherwise known as Philosophy Tube. Well, one of the reasons is I actually wanted to get Kimmy on to give testimony.
Testimony? Jeez, that sounds very official.
Well, a couple of years ago, they put out this video where they came out as bisexual. Which in the middle of it, for some apparent reason, has them doing a cover version of the Raconteurs, Steady as They Go. Which I certainly thought was a bit cringe. To be honest.
To be honest, I don't really remember it, so.
But
it's all very hazy.
But I do remember, and you say you do remember this. I remember we both saw the video, and I said to you, I think they're trying to tell us something more. As in, they're trans. Well,
I think it's, I mean, that's not really an uncommon thing for, like, you know, trans people to do. Like, to speculate that someone's in, I suppose, what the community call egg mode is what it's often the name of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes, you know, people do think, because I mean, obviously Philosophy Tube's done a lot of really good stuff over the years, really nice content. Well, she's been around for a long time, actually. I think she's been around for like, what, 10 years?
2013, I think she mentioned this in the video we were...
Yeah, something like that. And yeah, obviously her content has certainly got more and more away from, I suppose, general philosophy and towards more like political based content, certainly from quite a left wing point of view. And you have lots of videos talking about obviously queer identity, transphobia, sort of transgender, non-binary issues. And I
Yeah,
mean, it's not, and obviously it's not for the first time that, someone talks about that, they end up transitioning themselves. Or that ends up being the final outcome. I mean, it happened. I mean, that kind of happened with me and my own YouTube channel. Like, when
yeah.
I started getting more and more, like, questioning, when was this? What, about 2013? 2014?
I think you did. Oh, I mean, yeah,
I did videos.
I know,
I did,
yeah,
like, certain videos.
I know you've.
Yeah, 2013.
I know you've unlisted your coming out video, but I still
Yeah, but
think.
that was years. That was years after
All right.
that.
Well, no, but no one's coming out video is brilliant, but Kimmy's is one of the best because it starts off going, right, we're doing that video, are we?
Well,
And
I did previously make. I mean, yeah, well, they're all unlisted now, yeah, because I think of them all as kind of cringe. But I did make a more, I suppose, traditional coming out video before that, which no one has ever seen, and which I've firebombed from existence, which was more like, the, the very emotional and very like, it's my journey. Not that Abigail's video is anything like that at all.
well,
She kind of kills it.
we're gonna watch the statement she put out on her other channel because I can't play the actual coming out video because A, it's too long, and B, it has the best bit in it has music, and I would inevitably get a copyright strike for that. But we can watch her statement. Now, I actually went through this afternoon with Jane Fay, but as I say, I'm not sure that my interview with Jane Fay is going to see the light of day. So, just to cover my arse, because there are a few things I want to respond to in this video, we shall go through it.
Hello, my name is Abigail Thorne. I'm a professional actress from Newcastle upon Tyne. I live in London and I'm the creator of Philosophy Tube, an educational show that teaches people about philosophy in a fun way. I started the show almost 7 years ago when the coalition government tripled tuition fees because I wanted to give away my philosophy degree for free. At time of recording, the show has just over 800,000 subscribers. In my most recent video, Identity, I came out as a transgender woman. Thank you to everyone who kept my secret for such a long time as I prepared to come out publicly. I'm excited to continue my acting career and Philosophy Tube. Please respect my privacy and treat everyone with kindness and patience, even those who don't treat me kindly. It's so lovely to finally know, to finally relax.
Yeah, you can see that she is hugely relieved. You can just tell by the body language.
Because, I mean, it's clearly been, well, yeah, this is obviously, I mean, I suppose she alludes to, there's a lot of people who have been keeping things private because it's been obviously a long journey already, even like before this point. Like, some people might think, like, I think this is something that she mentioned in her live stream that she did a couple of days back, but like, some people immediately think, oh, this is just the start of the journey, which, obviously for pretty much any trans person, it clearly isn't. Like, coming out is what you do after, well, quite a long time of like dealing with it both inside your head or indeed with like certain procedures or what have you.
Yeah.
Like,
to sleep
in
well.
order to feel it in a place that you're comfortable to do it.
All right. I mean, I certainly remember when I came out and the relief I felt, the exhilaration. I still remember it to this day. It was like a huge monkey off my back. Yeah, but finally I could.
It's kind of gradual for me. It's like by the time I released that video that you just talked about, everyone knew already, really. Right. It was obvious. But I just thought, I just got to fucking do it, get it done.
With sweet dreams.
Carry on.
And be at home in myself. But I'm also scared. Things are very, very bad for trans people in the UK right now, and they're getting worse. Because of my existing following, I have now instantly become one of the most recognisable trans people in the country.
Right. I know there's some bitter and cynical trans people who will go, who the fuck does she think she is? Right. Well, let me explain. She has 800,000 subscribers. Okay.
Well, yeah, she's not one.
That's a big following. Okay. And she can get to people who maybe some other trans activists can't get to. Right. In giving a positive message about trans people. For fuck's sake, shouldn't we welcome, anybody who's prepared to stand up for trans rights,
Isn't it? I mean, there's only a few people out there, but yeah, I have seen some like bitter takes on the whole thing. Some rather bitter hot takes.
I don't think Essence of Thought has put out a video yet about Abigail coming out, but I do know that they had a real issue with that very lame joke they put out about Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, they put out it's an overworn joke.
Well,
it's like, congratulations on his transition or whatever it's.
Well, you must know. Sorry about them being trans, wasn't it?
Generic. It's sort of generic joke, and I think sometimes, well, Abigail has had to walk on eggshells a little bit with some people due to being connected to some other issues with people in her circle getting cancelled.
Yes,
as in Natalie.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's all kind of blown over now, but as soon as that happens, you do have people like watching you like a hawk online, waiting for their moment to, just go ban.
Well, no, I mean, look, my take on that rather lame joke was it was lame. It wasn't transphobic. I didn't think it was transphobic.
No,
not
at all.
I hate to think what Essence of Thought would think of the most close to the bone trans joke I know, which is
I don't know who that is.
They're a YouTuber. They have a channel dedicated basically to trans rights. They're very, very earnest and very sort of analytical.
Right.
Whereas of course people like me are very bombastic. But anyways, I was trying to get around to this joke. What do you call a post-op trans woman with wearing a 10-inch dildo?
I don't know, Soph. What do you call a post-op trans woman wearing a 10-inch dildo?
Nostalgic.
Soph will be here all week, everyone. Try the veal.
I actually thought that was a funny joke, so I just did. I did actually test that on someone who...
To be fair, I have heard it from you several times before.
Anyways, on with the video.
And I feel an enormous pressure to be good at it. Like, if I could only be clever enough, or pretty enough, or funny, or...
Yeah, I think most of us who speak up for trans people feel that, my darling. So you have my empathy.
Articulate enough, then things would magically come right. Alas, I can't be a perfect paragon of trans Britain. I'm just an actress. But I can relay the following facts. Trans people have existed for as long as there has been a Britain. Longer. But even after a century of feminism, the government still dictates what we can do with our own bodies. The NHS is forced by outdated rules to discriminate against us. If a cisgender, that is, not trans, woman, wants hormone replacement therapy for menopause, she can get it from the GP. But if a trans person needs the same medicine to transition, we are forced to travel to a separate clinic and be interrogated by psychiatrists. Because of this discrimination, waiting lists are years long. Women like me die waiting for the exact same medicine that bald men get from the GP to treat hair loss. Trans men die waiting for breast reduction surgery that cis women get for back pain. In England and Wales, people under 16 can get an abortion, which is permanent. but they can't get life-saving puberty blockers, which are reversible. Some government ministers promise to reduce waiting times, but that's not equality. It's just more efficient discrimination. We don't have equal legal rights either. When cis people get married or adopt children, they can use their passport as proof of ID. But we can't. Even though my passport says F for female, I'd have to beg the government's permission to become a wife or a mother. There has never been a trans MP, member of the House of Lords, MSP, MS, or MLA, and no party has equal rights as a policy goal.
There has been a trans MEP, though. Nikki
yes.
Nikki Sinclair.
We don't talk about her too much.
No. The other thing I was going to say, this, they don't mention this, but I do think this is fundamental. Cis people don't have to validate their gender to anybody.
No.
We do. Why should I have to validate my gender to anybody?
No, there's no reason to. There's no justification for having to.
No.
Really.
And
It's a turf trick.
Trans people, especially trans people of colour, are hit hardest by unemployment, homelessness, and domestic, sexual, and police violence. But the conversation always focuses on wealthy white cis women tweeting about toilets.
Oh, I wonder who she's referring to there.
Yes, I wonder.
Wouldn't be Joanna, would it?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think so, yes. Some author.
Yeah.
Overworked journalists often don't know much about our lives, so anti-feminists and religious extremists feed them pseudoscience and fear-mongering.
Right. First of all, I'm not saying there aren't some hard-working journalists, but most journalists I know are lazy cunts. Seriously. They are. Okay?
Short and to the point, Soph.
Yeah. Also, and this is specifically to do with in the light of the Kira Bell case against the Tavistock, judges are now going to be asked to make a decision about whether various trans youth can have treatment, as if a judge is a fucking medical expert.
Yes, they're not the person I would have picked.
Also, no news organisation in this country, such as the BBC or the Guardian newspaper or LBC radio, has a pro-trans editorial line.
No.
It's worth pointing that out.
Anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about a mythical trans lobby controlling universities and government are printed uncritically.
Right, okay, I guess I need to explain this one. What Abigail is referring to is a conspiracy theory called cultural Marxism, which is anti-Semitic because it's something which people like Pat Buchanan have pushed, alleging that there was a group of Jewish intellectuals who were philosophy professors at the Frankfurt School in the 1930s, who basically moved to America with due to the rise of fascism, and wanted to subvert American society away from traditional Christian values, as in, women having reproduction rights, LGBTQ equality, racial equality, stuff like that. And basically, anytime you hear anyone from the Brexit Party, or possibly there might be the odd Tory MP as well, say things like Black Lives Matter is Marxist, what they're saying is it's cultural Marxist, which is an anti-Semitic dog whistle.
Alongside calls to have us cured with conversion therapy, which, shockingly, is still legal.
Despite the fact that the Tories have been promising for the last 3 fucking years to outlaw it. And considering that US states such as Virginia and New Mexico, and now Mike Pence's home state, Indiana, are also considering outlawing it. Mike Pence's home state, the state which was one of the first to bring in the supposed religious freedom law, which basically just entitled Christians to be bigots towards LGBTQ people. Yeah. Places like Virginia and New Mexico are not bastions of radical progressive thought, and yet they have outlawed conversion therapy, but this country hasn't.
I mean, we as a nation we aren't doing very well, are we? I mean, as she said earlier in the video, like, she comes out at a pretty precarious time.
Yeah.
Well-meaning folks, like yourself, sometimes worry about embarrassing themselves by saying the wrong thing. So they don't speak up to help us. Like suffragettes and black civil rights movements before us, we are told to watch our tone, lest the people who are denying us the means to live get hurt feelings.
Yeah, isn't it funny?
Well, Soph's had never any trouble with that.
Isn't it? I mean, this is something I actually forgot to mention last night when me and Osman were going over that Ben Shapiro interview. Well, when Andrew Neil interviewed Ben Shapiro, that Andrew Neil was asking him questions, and he started acting like a utter fucking snowflake. I forgot to use the word snowflake, but this is typical of people on the right. They always talk about. About personal responsibility. Yeah, anytime.
Just don't care about your feelings.
Yeah, anytime, they need to take responsibility for their actions, they always pass in the buck. And, they say facts over feelings, yet, basically when someone says something they don't like, fuck me. They turn into an emotive tornado.
I might just be an actress, but as a feminist, I can't submit to civic inferiority or give up control of my body. In my view, feminism...
Also, I'm just going to mention this, right? Talking about feminism and trans people, right? TERFs who pretend to be feminists, they're not feminists, right? And I will explain. I'll give you an example here. Where were the TERFs protesting the appointment of Amy Coney Barrett to the US Supreme Court? Somebody who would very much like to turn the United States into fucking Gilead and have women treated as second-class citizens. Right? Where were the TERFs? They weren't to be heard.
Feminism isn't a tea party with the Queen or a girl boss brunch with femspirational CEOs. It's our common struggle to be free. Today, I'd like to add my voice to the many demanding new legislation for trans equal rights. That is, an informed consent system of medical transition and a self-ID system of legal transition for all who desire it.
Yes, the Tories, that was another thing the Tories said they were going to bring in, self-ID, and then last September they shelved it with Liz Truss, the Equalities Minister, saying this is what was best for trans people. How fucking patronising. And Liz, how do you know what's good for trans people? You're not fucking trans.
Including non-binary people. Everyone else in Britain gets their healthcare and gendered services that way. Surely it's only fair that we do too. In my mind, there's no question about it. Just as there was no legitimate debate about whether to give gay and lesbian people equal rights. We don't cancel or silence flat earthers when we set aside their concerns about space travel and start listening to cosmonauts. That said, equal rights won't fix the poverty, criminalization, surveillance, and state violence facing all those who work for a living rather than own property and capital. Trans equality must be part of a huge redistribution of power and resources so society serves human need instead of profit. I hope that someday soon, people of all ages realize that being trans is perfectly normal. Like all human beings, we are inherently valuable and entitled to self-determination. And if that makes some people uncomfortable, well, it's only because they're choosing not to live in reality. These are scary times. But courage calls to courage everywhere, and its voice cannot be denied. Even when other people make it hard, being trans is a gift. My love goes out to every trans person within the sound of my voice, in Britain or overseas, especially those who can't come out. Yet. This above all, to thine own self be true. And it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man.
Now, I agreed with everything they said in that video.
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Now,
yes. Yeah.
one thing with Abigail is that I know that she was having to do the part-time thing because she was still producing videos posing as Oliver for the last year, and then in her private life was being her true self, Abigail. And so this might make sense as to why I put this here in the running order. This is an interview with legendary trans electronic music pioneer Wendy Carlos. Appeared on the BBC as a cis man. This is why, very different times, of course. Yeah, I remember that clip. It's often been this clip here. It's often been shown. And if you're wondering what music they produced, well, they produced one of the most famous film scores of one of the most controversial films ever made. I think I can get away with playing a snippet of it.
About 5 seconds, yes.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I think that's about as much as you can get away with.
Hold on. Now, if anyone doesn't know what that... Well, it actually says underneath. It says, that is the intro, that's the overture to A Clockwork Orange, which, of course, was directed by Stanley Kubrick, the legendary Stanley Kubrick, who was an utter fucking genius, as far as I'm concerned. Though Clockwork Orange wasn't his best film, as we all know, that was Barry Lyndon, the film no one went to see. But of course, people are going to go, yeah, but The Shining was better. The Shining was better. No, The Shining wasn't better. Okay? Barry Lyndon was his best film. So, Kimmy will know this joke because I got into an argument at a barbecue with somebody about what Kubrick's best film was.
Yes.
Right. Now, this is why I have had Kimmy on, because Kimmy is a wrestling fan, so she knows. I
am a wrestling fan. Yes.
Something about this individual.
Sins. So yes, Gabby Tuft, who's come out as a trans woman the past few days ago. I do believe. I mean, certainly not the first transgender person in wrestling. I mean, we've actually had champions in major companies now who are trans. Nyla Rose in AEW, but I don't recall anyone else who's at least a former WWE wrestler who's actually come out as trans. She used to wrestle back in like the early 2010s for the company as Tyler X. Wasn't massively successful, it has to be said. Like, she was there for a couple of years, but she was kind of a name that I suppose only wrestling fans like me would really remember too well. But yes, she came out as trans a few days ago. She's out of the business now. I think she does works in fitness. She has like a fitness company.
Right. Of course, one of my claims.
Sorry,
I was going to say one of my claims to fame is that I knew Glenn Jacobs.
You did.
Yeah, he once name checked me on the radio.
I have to say, I have seen a little bit of the reaction to her coming out from certain areas of the internet wrestling community. It's not been great. It has to be said.
Yeah, but
I mean, it's
I would imagine there's an awful lot of chads who like wrestling.
Oh yeah. There is a lot of that. There's a lot of like, jockey sort of personalities, especially like quite loud-mouthed personalities and they're they are going to take the piss. Unfortunately, it has to be said. Which is a shame. I mean, there have also been other people, obviously, who have been very positive, and again, like there is gradually more and more certainly over the past couple of years, there's been a lot more positive representation in professional wrestling, certainly from a major perspective. There's various like out people competing in both WWE and AEW, who are out as some shape of LGBT.
I guess people would know what WWE is, but what's the other one?
Oh, AEW. AEW is like the new kid on the block. It's like a new sort of major promotion that's in competition with WWE. So a lot of wrestling fans know that one. They're like also on like television and that.
Oh, right. Like Ted Turner used to have his...
Yes, in fact, yeah, it's on the same channel that WCW used to be on. TBS. So there is more and more positive reputation. I mean, her coming out does show in one day that there is kind of still a long way to go, because there are some people who, when I suppose it's hard to like compare it to obviously to like Abigail Thorne, who we've just seen. Like, obviously, Gabby being a former.
Well, as I said, I hate to stereotype your wrestling fan, but they tend to be somewhat chaddish.
I
would also say that I would imagine the wrestling fraternity is a pretty sort of macho type arena.
Certainly certainly historically, yes.
Despite the fact that this is all pretend and make believe, essentially. I know people do get genuinely hurt.
Yes, a lot.
Yeah. Has there been any response from Vince McMahon you know about?
Oh no, nothing at all. Which is not really surprising.
Well, yeah, he's friends with Donald Trump.
I mean, thing is, I mean, when she was a part of WWE, she did kind of fall foul of some people there, like politically, like there was like backstage shenanigans that might have like curtailed her career a little bit. I think also one other thing I also want to point out, especially in comparison with like Abigail Thorne, and this is certainly something that wrestling fans fucking struggle with, or like, really do not get very successful on, is like, obviously she doesn't look like the sort of generic model of a trans woman.
She doesn't look bad.
No, but I mean, but obviously there are, she's 6'5". She's
to take Janine Marie Kroc, I don't know. Have you ever
well,
seen...
yeah, there's, I mean, we have more, yeah, we do have more and more, obviously, yeah, Janine Marie Kroc is a very good case, and it shows that his things are getting better on that front.
But I
think there's still ways to go.
Well, the thing I'd say about Janine Marie Kroc is, I've seen interviews with her, and it's not the way she looks, it's the way she comes over. She's very sweet.
Yeah. I mean, I've certainly never. I'm not sure if there has to date been like an actual interview with Gabby to see where she comes across. I mean, obviously, there have been some people who just from the pictures have been like, quite nasty and vicious about it, which is unfortunate.
The other thing I was going to say about wrestling, what I did see, I remember I've mentioned this to you a couple of times. There was a really good documentary a few years ago. about a Canadian wrestler. He was in the WWE, and I think you know this guy is.
Yeah, Bret Hitman Hart.
Yeah, but he was sort of nudged out, wasn't he?
Yes. It was a lot of political stuff going on at the time.
Yeah.
Sort of political stuff like, backstage.
Yeah.
Backstabbing.
I forgot what the name of the documentary is, but it's
Wrestling with Shadows.
Yeah,
it's called.
But it's a really good documentary.
It is, yes.
Do you want to stay or do you want to go?
I have to go.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us.
No problemo.
I hope those.
I just also want to say, just in case, I don't want to make it quite clear. Obviously, I think, we all wish, Gabby all the best. But, you know, it's good to see her as, who she really is.
Just want to tell people when you're streaming next on Twitch.
Tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Yes. And please go and check her out, but please don't talk about politics on her chat. If you want to talk politics, stay right here. Thank you for joining me, my darling, and I'm sure we will
No
be
worries,
talking.
love. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Take care, hon.
Bye.
Right, bye. All right. That was my my other half. It's really lovely to have her with us for a little while. Anyways, on with the show. Talk about coming out. So, in Germany, a group of actors in Germany have come out as LGBT plus en masse, revealing that they have been warned to keep their identity secret so their careers could thrive. Yeah. Of course, there is a rise of transphobia and homophobia with the rise of the far right across Europe. So this is certainly the action to combat that, I would imagine. Some 185 actors publicly came out as gay, lesbian, bisexual, queer, non-binary, or trans in an article published in something German, which I can't pronounce, magazine on last Friday. They published a joint manifesto calling for more LGBT plus characters on screen, as well as demanding a change in attitudes towards LGBT plus actors in the industry. Yeah, the more people who come out, the more visible they are, the better. The more of us there are, the harder it is for fascists to defeat us. We need more diversity. We need more LGBT plus people. But what we don't need is people thinking that everyone's been brainwashed into thinking they're LGBT plus. People have got to come out, on their own, because it is them. No one should have to be in the closet. Right. Right, yes. I was hoping to get someone on to talk about this who lives in New York, but they said they weren't up to coming on. So New York has finally got rid of the walking while trans ban that let police hound trans women of colour simply for existing. Now, the UK used to have a similar law to this, impersonating a woman. I remember Caroline Cosy, when she first came out, and this was back in the 70s, was warned that she could be arrested for impersonating a woman. I mean, it seems fucking ridiculous. But what is ridiculous about this law is this law came into being in 1976. Forgot where it says it exactly in this article. And when you think about it, that wasn't that long ago. But New York have got the New York State Legislature have got rid of it, and that's, a good thing. No trans person should be harassed for walking down the street just because they're trans. So, Biden's press secretary has said that trans rights are human rights. Yeah. Yet another, thumbs up from me for the Biden administration.
Secondly, on President Biden's transgender rights executive action, specifically when it applies to high school sports. What message would the White House have for trans girls and cis girls who may end up competing against each other and sparking some lawsuits and some concern among parents? So does the administration have guidance for schools on dealing with disputes arising over trans girls competing against and with cis girls?
I'm not sure what your question is.
The president's executive order had...
I'm familiar with the order, but what was your question about it?
My question is, does the president have a message for local school officials on dealing with these kind of disputes that are already starting to arise between, trans girls who are competing and cis girls, and a level playing field, particularly in high school sports when it leads to college scholarships? Is there any kind of messaging or clarification that the White House wants to give on the executive order?
I would just say that the president's belief is that trans rights are human rights, and that's why he signed that executive order. And in terms of the determinations by universities and colleges, I would certainly...
Yeah, trans rights are human rights. They are. Absolutely. That's all that needs to be said. Yeah, no, this is, well, homophobes are more likely to be stupid, according to science. Yeah, you might as well report that the grass is green and water is wet when you say, homophobes are likely to be more stupid. They are more likely to be stupid. People feel what they don't understand, and if you have lesser intelligence, you're going to be able to understand less, aren't you? So, yeah. But there has been a scientific study proving this now. I remember a few years ago there was also a scientific study saying that people with left-wing political views tended to be more intelligent. Yeah. Well, funny that, isn't it? You think about what's associated with the right-wing politics. Oh yeah, bigotry. Yeah, and we all know bigots are stupid. So yeah, I can't say I'm surprised. And well, but it's good to have a scientific study to back us up now. Yes. Some Christian priest basically said that he spoke out about the cult of Captain Tom Moore. Now, for those who don't remember, I'm sure most people do, but I'll just remind anyone anyways. Tom Moore was, Captain Tom Moore, died last week. He was the man who basically walked around his back garden and raised over £30 million for the NHS. As far as I'm concerned, he basically made me have faith in humanity again. That kind of civic spirited endeavour should be applauded. I think he was a really decent human being, and I salute him. But this guy, there must be something wrong with this guy saying that there was that the people who praised and clapped for Tom Moore were a cult. Well, what does he think Christianity is? Christianity's a fucking cult. All religions are cult. Well, yeah. And he's been rightfully condemned as far as I'm concerned. What a wanker. Alright, yes, and as well as that Christian priest, a man has been charged over a tweet put out about Tom Moore. A man has been charged in Lancashire to connect in connection with an offence. Sorry. Calm down, Sophia. Calm down. Let me have a puff. And yeah, so I'm having a few brain farts at the moment. A few too many. I don't mind the odd one, but yeah. Yeah, so a man in Scotland essentially has been charged in connection with an offensive tweet about Captain Tom Moore. Said, yeah, he died last week. He certainly did capture the nation's hearts. I think, as I said, I think this man was Captain Tom Moore really did seem a decent human being. I mean, there has to be something. Well, there's always that one person when they're drunk has to say something really offensive just for fucking attention, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I actually remember when Tom Daley won a medal at the Olympics, and there was some arsehole tweeting homophobic shit about him. And he ended up being interviewed by the police. I mean, what, I just... How can he... But with Tom Moore, with Tom Daley, how can he seems a jolly nice guy, Tom Daley, nasty to the person. And how can he be a nasty to a person who did try... but raise so much money for the NHS, an institution which we all benefit from, and at the moment is seriously overburdened with COVID-19. It is the NHS which is getting us through this pandemic, and all the doctors and nurses deserve our love and hugs, virtual hugs of course, at the moment. So yeah, I just think people who are being abusive towards Captain Tom Moore are, well, they're scum. Yeah, so apparently a government employee has spent $6,000 on luxury chocolate. Now, what's interesting about this story is that it hasn't been picked up by the mainstream. What I mean by the sort of the normal outlets like the Mirror or the Daily Mail. And I'm wondering why. Obviously there have been other expense scandals bigger than this in the past, but and maybe considering the amount of money, and I mean the government is spending a fuck ton of money in response to the part of the COVID-19 response. This borrowing is now at I think over 100% of GDP. $6,000 really is, well, it's pennies, isn't it, in comparison? But still, I mean, look, I know people like chocolate, but $6,000 on chocolate? Fuck's sake, what's wrong with a few Twix bars? Or a Kit Kat? Or a Yorkie? Yeah, I like Yorkies. Ah, yes. So the government is, the Tory government are proposing that people who break the COVID-19 travel restrictions should face a 10-year jail term. I kind of agree and I kind of don't. I agree that they should face jail term. 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years tops. Not 10 years. 10 years is what you give people who commit armed robbery and manslaughter. Now, I know potentially people coming into this country, you know, who go abroad and then come back, despite whatever restrictions, could potentially kill people by, you know, spreading COVID-19. But that's very hard to prove that they are the one actually responsible for helping to spread it. But yeah, and there's also an element here of the government yet again passing the buck. Yeah, there is this. The Tories do seem to be sort of, any time they're in trouble over, you know, dealing with COVID-19, they sort of deflect it and blame the public. So there is an element of that with this. So, as I say, yeah, I agree they should get a jail sentence, but not 10 fucking years. That's just overkill. We come to my favourite part of the show. Yes, shitting on Starmer. Yes, Keir Starmer, otherwise known as Captain Clueless. Yes, I saw this today. Yeah, everything Keir Starmer is trying to do with the Labour Party is cringe. The whole plastic patriot bullshit. And believe me, it is plastic patriot. Well, that's certainly what the far right think it is. I just think it's just trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator. As I say in this tweet, I wonder if he's taken Tommy Robinson as an advisor. Yeah, nabbed him from advising Gerard Batten, the UKIP leader. Because it really does seem that the Union Jack and, you know, the whole family values, patriotism, so he really does seem to be pandering to the kind of people who support Tommy Robinson, and who are actual fucking hypocrites. And also, Keir, right, wrapping yourself up in the Union Jack, mate, as an answer for fucking everything. Isn't that what Nigel Farage is supposed to be doing? As I say, particularly Tommy Robinson's a fucking hypocrite. I don't know if you remember, but back last summer, he said he was going to go to Spain and live. And he was going to do this because he has an Irish passport. Hold on, I thought he was a British patriot. I thought, you know, patriots are meant to stand their ground and fight for their country. No, he was planning on fucking off to Spain on an Irish passport due to, I think, some Irish ancestry, heritage ancestry, whatever he has. Yeah, fucking hypocrite. As it goes, he didn't. I don't know for what reason, but probably the Spanish authorities really don't want him around. Anyways, that's one story. Yeah, this is a headline from the Daily Express. In fact, I've got another Express story later on, which I agree with. Weirdly, considering the Express are probably the most right-wing of all the sort of mainstream daily national newspapers. So yeah, Keir Starmer facing leadership coup as ruthless Corbynites plot to oust Labour leader. Right, as far as I'm concerned, sooner the fucking better if that was true. But really, Corbynites are ruthless? They're fucking hippies. Ruthless. It's the Blairites who are the ruthless ones. The Blairites who'll do anything to be in power. For the kudos of being in power. Including sell their fucking grandma. Never mind just selling their principles down the road. Down the river, isn't it? Sorry. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, Keir Starmer actually did do a bit better today at PMQs. I'll say that, but it's going to take an awful lot more for him to do before I start screaming, Starmer out, Starmer out, Starmer out. He's got to go, right? Labour are on a downward trajectory. Labour are in a death spiral, essentially. And it's really fucking painful to watch as somebody who's very much wedded to the British political left. Yeah, so this one poll, just checking who, yeah, so a Maury poll is suggesting that Starmer has lost half of the people who voted for the Labour in 2019. Not just that, can I just remind people that the Labour Party are losing members, they're losing union support. This is what I'm saying. They're on a trajectory downwards. They're in a nosedive. You know, I'm seriously. You think that the 2019 general election result was bad? Wait until 2024 if he's still leader. Essentially, right? Nobody knows what Labour stand for. And I know that, you know, Starmer and the front bench team say, oh, it's too soon, you know, it's a long time before a general election for us to have policies. Look, anything could happen between now and the next general election, right? Labour need to get their butts in gear and basically pitch themselves as a government in waiting with policies which can deal with the issues facing Britain today. Okay? Unless they do that, and you know, people are not going to you know, vote for them. Plus, and this is something I haven't mentioned in all my commentary about Starmer, but I think it's worth talking about. Starmer obviously wants to attract people who voted Tory to vote Labour. That he wants them to, you know, flip their vote. Thing is, what he's forgetting about is the vote on the left. Now, Labour lost an awful lot of seats up north, and there was definitely a swing, and in other seats they managed to hang on to, there was a swing against them, right? So in those marginal seats, right, they are counting on Labour members and Labour supporters to go out and vote. Okay? But what if those Labour supporters think, nah, the Labour Party doesn't represent me anymore? You know, they've moved too far to the right. They're going to stay at home, most likely. They're not, you know, they might not, you know, some might hold their nose and vote Labour, but I think there could be, you know, a few who will just stick at home. And those votes, the loss of those votes could actually mean that Labour lose more seats. I will say this: if Starmer carries on as leader till the next general election, I think that Labour will dip below 200 seats in Parliament. You know, I'm actually really scared of that. And to compound the problem, the Greens have now replaced the Lib Dems as the first. This is a bit misleading. Basically, there has been a poll by Ipsos, I think it is, that have the Green Party now in third place above the Liberal Democrats. Now, I don't expect the Greens to suddenly let's just say that those polls hold, and they're not going to before the next general election, okay? The Greens would not win a whole load of seats and overtake the Lib Dems as the third largest party in Parliament. That's not going to happen, okay? But the danger to Labour, right, from this is that obviously the Green Party basically help is I guess the wrong word, but basically they split the vote on the left, right? Which means if there's enough people disgruntled with Labour, they then might vote Green. Thus, that hinders Labour from winning, various seats. As well as that, as I said, there's a lot of disgruntled Labour supporters who might think of voting Green, and understandably. Why? Because obviously the Green are to the left of Labour now. And as well as that, I know Labour members who are now telling me that's it. They're leaving Labour and joining the Greens. And I do know that there are some Greens a bit disgruntled about this. Don't know why. Wouldn't a boost in membership be welcome? You could be able to put what the revenue generated by that would mean that you'd be better able to fight various elections. Blah 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 blah. Funny thing is, when Corbyn was in charge of the Labour Party, the Green Party were essentially dead. Because he basically moved the Labour Party to the left into that area on the political left, which the Greens were occupying. Now the Greens are becoming a danger to Labour because Starmer's moving them to the right. Starmer's moving Labour to the right. It's not good news with anything Starmer does with Labour. And I saw Richard Bergen on the Politics Live and today, BBC Politics Live show, and I actually think Richard Bergen should think about challenging Keir Starmer for the leadership. I honestly do. I mean, he's on the left of the party. He's competent. He's articulate. And I've actually met him. So I know he's a good bloke. Actually, I remember that evening very well. So after the Brexit referendum, obviously there was a challenge to Jeremy Corbyn's leadership by Owen Smith. And the day before Corbyn launched his campaign to be re-elected Labour leader, there was a rally in support of him. I think it was at Conway Hall, is it, in Holborn or Kilburn? I can't remember. Well, I remember being there, but I can't. I remember it was a very hot and sultry day. And the hall was obviously packed. Just about every Corbyn rally I ever went to was basically packed. There were usually people sitting in the aisles. That it was that packed. And this was no different. And obviously there were various speakers. And we weren't expecting Jeremy to come along. It'd been a busy day at Parliament. Anyway, Diane Abbott turned up and she said, I brought a friend. And it was Jeremy Corbyn. And all of a sudden the hall erupted. Now, I've been in plenty of political rallies in my time, right? But what the reason this one stands out is I've never heard a room shake with applause before. That night I did. I also remember I was taking some photos of Jeremy speaking, and he saw me, and he sort of coughed in an annoyance at me. But anyways, Richard Bergen was the last speaker, and as I said, it had been a hot day, it had been a busy day at Parliament. Richard Bergen comes on and gave a barnstorming, belly on fire, fire in the belly speech. I didn't know where the fuck he got the energy from, and I was just really bowled over and impressed by this guy. He really did impress me. After the rally was over, I saw Richard on the way out, and I went up to him. And this was one of the first times I'd actually gone into London, and this is a very trans thing, without wearing makeup. I had the confidence. I mean, it was too hot for fucking makeup. It really was. And so he said, I got changed to him. He said, what's your name? And I went, Sophia. And there was this like uncomfortable pause. And I went, oh, hi, Sophia. Yeah, as I said, Richard Bergen, I really think he seems a nice guy. I think he could do a really good job as leader. I really do. He should think about challenging Keir Starmer. Because, well, as I say, Keir Starmer, I think, could be the destruction of the Labour Party. Ah, yes, the Lib Dems. Right, okay. Why am I talking about the Lib Dems? Okay, well, the other night I was talking about the various left-wing parties, the SNP, Labour, of course, and the Greens. And I didn't say anything about the Lib Dems. Well, mainly because I don't really consider them left of centre. They supposedly that's their pitch. But, hey, that was Nick Clegg's pitch back in 2010. He posed as progressive. And we all know what happened after the 2010 general election, don't we? Yes. They jumped into bed with the Tories in government for the kudos of being in government. Because the Lib Dems hadn't been in government for nearly 100 fucking years. Yeah? And basically helped, hurt and kill a lot of vulnerable people with austerity. In fact, Sir Ed Davey got his knighthood for supporting the Conservatives. He got a knighthood for the part he played in that coalition government. So, and I did vote Lib Dem. I have to admit, I fell for the lie that they were posing as progressive. If I lived in a safe Labour seat or a marginal Labour seat, I would vote Labour. But I live in one of the safest Tory seats in the country, so voting Labour really is a wasted vote around here, sadly. So, I was talking the other night about various left-wing parties and the issue of transphobia. Now, the Lib Dems are probably the one party which is relatively untainted, and I know they've had some really good trans people as members of the party, and have played a role in the party. Sarah Brown obviously was a councillor on Cambridge City Council. There's various Helen Belcher stood for Parliament. In fact, she stood for Parliament in up against John Redwood in Wokingham, wasn't it? So there are, and of course Helen Belcher was also the head of Transmedia Watch. Anyways, right, where was it? Yeah. So the Lib Dems. Here's the thing, right? I stopped voting Lib Dems locally. As I said, I did vote for them at the 2010 general election. And what I'm about to tell you, and I think I've already said this on stream, but I'll say it again. So around the time of civil partnership, so we're talking 15 years ago, you know, when civil partnerships with same-sex couples became legal, the local councillor said to me, the local Lib Dem councillor said to me, "Oh, I've got nothing against gay people, just so long as they don't live next door to me." To which my response was, "Well, that's not a very liberal, opinion." And they went, "I'm not a liberal all the time." To which I said, "What are you, a part-time member of the Ku Klux Klan?" Which they didn't like. The thing is, the Lib Dems are the party which says one thing and does another, as proven by what happened in the aftermath of the 2010 general election. And I just don't trust them. Yes, support for universal basic income, good. Wanting to possibly renegotiate rejoining the EU, good idea. I'm not denying that. But the thing is, the Lib Dems, right, are the one party which will just say, who pretend to be all very ethical, principled, but they're the party who are most likely to sell out as quick as possible. Also, the other thing with the Lib Dems is if you get 3 Lib Dems in a room and ask them what the Lib Dems actually stand for, you'll get 4 different answers. And I actually know something about liberal philosophy. I've read John Stuart Mill. I can tell you that the Lib Dems have ventured far from those ideals. I remember Charles Kennedy. That was the last Lib Dem leader I think I really liked. And I have to admit, I shed a tear the day he died. It was really, really sad. Really was. And I actually once met Charles Kennedy in a bar, funny enough, considering some of the problems he had. And yeah, as I said, he took a principled stand against the Iraq War. He was certainly somebody who stood up for social justice. And I have, but the Lib Dems are not that party anymore. And, we all used to like the Liberal Democrats, or formerly the Liberal Party. They had some, good ideas. They were the first sort of party to sort of champion LGBT rights. They were the first party to sort of say, hey, maybe we should legalise marijuana. They were the first party to propose devolved power. It's not like they haven't come up with some good ideas. They were obviously the first of the 3 major parties to really start talking about, environmental, talking about the environment. But they're not that party now. They're the party who every election they just become a fucking annoyance, because obviously broadcasters have to give them equal time, and they're just an electoral nuisance. The last general election, am I the only one who thought Joe Swinson, who was the then leader, was annoying as fuck? Whiny. Well, because she wasn't allowed into, I think it was the ITV debate she wasn't allowed into? Yeah, I think that was, what she wasn't invited, sorry. Yeah, there was a debate between Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson, and she wasn't invited to be part of that. But they did give her time in a sort of post show, along with obviously Nigel Farage and Nicola Sturgeon, right? And she just sat there wondering, why won't you let me in the debate? Why won't you let me in the debate? Why won't you let me in the debate? Well, it was proven why by the election result. Funny enough, Joe Swinson lost lost her seat, which was probably the only happy thing which happened that night. And I mean, the other thing was, I think it was Owen Jones basically kept track that Joe Swinson attacked the Labour Party 4 times as many times as she did the Tories, which tells you which side of her bread was, which side she really, was leaning towards. Yeah, she was basically a yellow Tory. Yet was trying to go after, those people who were disgruntled with the Labour Party. Well, if you're going to be, attacking the Labour Party 4 times as many times as you attack the Tories is not going to, get you former Labour voters. Yeah. So yeah, I just think, I'll be blunt, I just think the Liberal Democrats are a nuisance and a waste of fucking space. Plus, also on the LGBT issue, they've also got a Tim Farron problem. Yes, Tim Farron. This is an old story, but I thought it was worth bringing up. So, if anyone remembers when Tim Farron did his stint as leader, he was asked, did he think homosexuality? No, it was specific. It was gay sex was a sin. Now the guy's an evangelical Christian, and he refused to answer. Then, about a week later, he said, "No, of course I don't think it's a sin. No, I don't, because obviously, the Lib Dem spin doctors had probably gone off and commissioned some market research telling them, oh shit, people are, because it's not a very liberal point of view to be anti-LGBTQ, is it? yeah. And well, anyways, but he only retracted that later on after he stepped down as leader. And he's been accepting money from evangelical Christians. And basically more recently he's been defending J.K. Rowling. Rather than actually defending, trans people. You kind of think that liberals, they always bang on that they're pro-individual liberty, right? Well, isn't the greatest expression of individual liberty being yourself? And that's what being trans is. Being yourself. Anyways, so he accepted 75 grand from an evangelical group and well, first of all, hold on. I thought Christians are meant to be charitable and help the homeless and help the disadvantaged. Wouldn't that money be better spent off doing that? And oh, wait, the evangelical Christians, they don't go in for the, all the hippie shit which Jesus said. They get stuck on the book of Leviticus, don't they? All the fire and brimstone. The other thing is, if Tim Farron is getting 75 grand from an evangelical group when the Lib Dems have fuck all influence in Parliament, that means that there probably are conservative backbenchers getting an awful lot more from anti-LGBTQ groups. And believe me, some of these groups have got very deep pockets. Yeah, that's the worrying thing. But the bottom line is, what the fuck is Tim Farron doing in the Liberal Democrats when he has some very illiberal views? That's what I would say. This is why Tim Farron, if you ask me the bottom line with the Liberal Democrats, that's why I wouldn't vote for them now. Ah, yes, as I said earlier, there was a story in the Express which I actually agree with. Yeah, I know. Have I just caused a rip in the space-time continuum by agreeing with the Express? Well, half of Brits no longer want to pay the license fee for bias reporting. Now, obviously, the Express are saying that they have a the BBC have a left-wing bias. No, they don't. I watch a lot of the BBC's current affairs output because, well, it's what I do, right? And they certainly have a Tory bias. I mean, last weekend, the Andrew Marr was falling over himself in praise of the Tories' amazing vaccine program. Fuck me, I forgot the name of the minister for the vaccine rollout. But he basically Andrew Marr should have just cut out the bullshit, unzipped him, and given him a blowjob on the fucking live on air. You know, yeah. So I would want rid of the license fee because I kind of feel it's anachronistic with all the streaming services and cable TV and whatever else. The generally people on the left are pro the BBC, but and well, the institution of the BBC, I think there's a lot of people on the left who don't like it having its Tory bias. But to be fair, the BBC tends to be biased towards whichever party's in government. Let's remember what happened. What happened with under the Labour under Labour. And the whole what happened with the sorry, let me calm down. Deep breath, Sophia. Okay. The BBC under the Labour government were fairly sort of did lean towards that government. Not always, granted. Of course, there was the whole weapons of mass destruction and the dodgy dossier, but we all know what happened there, don't we? The thing is, the BBC is never going to be impartial, no matter how much they try. Someone is always going to think they're biased, right? And in one way, I have always said the easiest way to understand BBC bias is it just leans towards the establishment. That's pretty much it. You don't see an awful lot of anti-establishment thought on the BBC anymore. Maybe on when it comes to cultural stuff, but not when it comes to political stuff. And definitely for the last 10 years they have let to the right politically. And I have said that in some ways I prefer Fox News to BBC News. The reason being that I don't pay for Fox News and I don't have to watch it, but I do pay, like every other person, pay for BBC News, who I've said will never be able to be impartial. So I think the best thing to do is, essentially privatise the BBC. I wouldn't like, have adverts running on the BBC. I more like a sort of an HBO model where, people pay a subscription. If people want to pay want to pay for the BBC, in a by subscription, that seems fair enough to me. And I know some people would say to me, yeah, but don't you like things like Doctor Who? Yes, I do like Doctor Who, and that the argument is that wouldn't get made on commercial television. No, not back then. But you think about some of the stuff that Netflix have put out now. I think I could see be something like Doctor Who being made on a subscription service. So yeah, I think that's what needs to happen with the BBC. Anyways, yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene. So it's been relatively quiet with Marjorie Taylor Greene. But she put this out about the impeachment trial by the Senate of Donald Trump. Let's have a listen to what she has to say.
As we go through watching this scam impeachment trial, where you know what really is on trial, everyone, it's freedom of speech. They don't want you to have free speech. They don't want President Trump to have free speech. You see, President Trump did nothing wrong. He said nothing wrong. All he did was encourage his supporters who had come from all over the country to...
He incited a fucking riot. Now, yet again, she's confusing having a Twitter account with free speech, or not having a Twitter account in this case, right? Twitter aren't obliged to give people a platform. Okay, they're not obliged. Okay, and if you break their terms of service, you know they have the right to throw you off, and he did. He was inciting violence. You know, inciting violence is not freedom of speech.
It's freedom of speech. They don't want you to have free speech. They don't want President Trump to have free speech. You see, President Trump did nothing wrong. He said nothing wrong. All he did was encourage his supporters who had come from all over the country to see him to peacefully and patriotically march to the Capitol and make...
Yes, but they didn't just march to the Capitol. They fucking rioted, Marjorie, because he was fucking encouraging them in that speech he gave, you know, at the rally beforehand. You know, as well as, of course, Rudy Giuliani. Let's not forget, you know, trial by combat and all that.
Make your voices heard. There's nothing wrong with that statement. He incited no violence. The liars will never stop lying, and they will never stop attacking.
I don't know which speech you were listening to, Marjorie, but the one I heard, he was inciting violence, and I would imagine the vast majority of people I know would agree with me.
And so we will pray for him. We will support him and just lift him up in our prayers throughout this week while they attack him and try to impeach a president that is no longer a president. You can't impeach somebody after they're not president anymore.
Yes, you can.
Now he's a private citizen. But that's what they're going to do anyways, because they'll never stop. They just will never stop. But here's what's going to happen. Their plans are going to fail. Absolutely going to fall straight on their face. But the reality is still there. Freedom of speech is the one thing they're coming after. And why is that? It's our First Amendment. Why do you think our founding fathers made...
Right. The First Amendment also includes freedom of religion. What was it you said? Non-Christians shouldn't be in Congress. Yeah, I think that's what you said. So, you know, if we can talk about the First Amendment. Secondly, Marjorie, you're exercising your right to freedom of speech just fucking fine. You never shut the fuck up.
Freedom of speech. Speech, our First Amendment. They put it first because it's that important. If you can't speak your mind, your thoughts, your beliefs, your values, to even discuss problems, to ask questions, maybe questions about things that aren't true, like I did. I posted a lot of questions and talked about things. Some of them were very true.
Right. This is obviously it says it up here. This is a reference to all the conspiracy theory bullshit she published about, you know, Jewish space lasers and 9/11 being an inside job. you weren't just asking questions, Marjorie. You were literally saying 9/11 was an inside job, and that, you know, us Jews have access to a secret space laser, which causes wildfires.
Some of them turned out to not be true, and I'm okay with that. But they don't.
But what of your conspiracy theories did turn out to be true? Drum roll. 0.
Want you to have your freedom of speech. They want to cancel you out because it's your speech that's the greatest threat to them, just like my speech is the greatest threat to them, just like President Trump's speech is the greatest.
Hold on. If your freedom of speech is the greatest threat to the establishment, why hasn't George Soros, praise be upon him, fired off the space laser and zapped you? Yeah? Anyways. Of course, she was talking about the Senate, of course, impeaching Trump. And I'm sure I will give you updates on that if anything happens over the next week. Of course, tonight being Wednesday and Friday and Monday, those are the nights I tend to go through the news. Tuesdays and Thursdays are more to do with in-depth sort of topics and reactions to basically various videos or discussion of various topics. So, anyways, enough of that. So, QAnon now have a new conspiracy that Donald Trump will return to be president on March the 4th. And you're probably thinking, what the fuck? Well, let this lady explain.
A peaceful transition is coming. Trump will not be sworn in as the 45th President of the United States on January 20th. Trump will take office as the 19th President of the United States on March 4th under the restored republic. Let me explain. You believe you live in a nation called United States of America. This nation hasn't existed since 1871, when this country ceased to be a nation and became a corporation belonging to the City of London. Every time you see an American flag with a gold fringe and gold...
Right, yeah, this is... I've had this sort of America's actually a corporation bullshit from, I think, Alex Jones before. Anyways.
Tilt attached to it. It represents the corporation, not the country. This is the reason you can never make progress financially. This is why the law always seems to be against the average citizen, while the rich and the elite literally get away with murder and worse things. If Biden, Harris, Pence, Pelosi, etc. are arrested for their crimes before January 20th, there will be no one to assume the presidency. Since Trump has not been certified as the presidential winner by Congress, he cannot remain president. If there is no president on January 20th, the corporation known as the United States of America will be dissolved. The military will then become the guardians of the nation during the transition. People will then have irrefutable proof.
Yeah, barking fucking mad. I mean, I'd just like to point out that the military aren't in charge of the United States at the moment. There's no transitional period. Biden is the president. Live with it. Alright? And no, Trump's not fucking coming back. Oh yes, Newsmax. Yes, Newsmax, which makes Fox News look moderate. Let's have a listen.
You know, it's really funny about this insurrection thing. I would respectfully request that Newsmax stop calling it a riot, an attack or an insurrection. It is none of those things. This was like a joyriding trespass ceremony with a bunch of grandmas, and sadly, a couple people got hurt. And there was
hold on a minute. Hold on. Noel. Yeah.
They were. That wasn't a riot. They looked like they were fucking rioting to me, and just about 99.9% of fucking people. Yeah, I mean, Newsmax just keeps giving platforms to these fucking whack jobs, and of course, Mark Lindell, probably has caused them to be served yet again with litigation by Dominion. I was reading another, so I didn't include it in the running order, but Sydney the Kraken Powell basically has been playing hard to get to be served by Dominion. I wonder why. Is it because she's going to get sued for $1.3 billion for slander? Yeah. Oh yes, remember the story about the realtor who took a private jet to the Capitol riots to take part? Well, she has been charged, but she pleaded with a federal judge to give her permission to take a holiday in Mexico, and guess what? The judge said yes. I wonder. Let's say there was some civil unrest at a Black Lives Matter demonstration, and one of those protesters was charged and put in front of a judge, and they asked whether they could go on holiday. I wonder what would have happened then. Yeah, heteronormative, white, middle-class, wealthy person can go on holiday, but hey, if you're for basically rioting because you don't like the election results, whereas they can go on holiday. Oh, that's perfectly fine. But if you are a black activist protesting, police brutality and institutionalized racism, no, you go to prison. Yeah. Yeah, this is just yet another indictment of basically a failing justice system in the United States. It really is. People with privilege really do take the piss, and the court officials allow them to do so. All right, yeah. Yet more news about the QAnon shaman. Let's just have a listen to what his lawyer has to say.
There he is, 6-foot spear in hand, trying to take it back, just like Trump had been telling him to for months at that point. If there were any question of whether Trump could have stopped this in its tracks, which is also fundamental here, Chansley explains why he left the Capitol. Listen.
Donald Trump asked everybody to go home. He just put out a tweet. It's a minute long. He asked everybody to go home.
Why do you think so?
Because, dude, we won day.
My dad said
won.
How did we win?
Well, we won by sending a message to the senators and the congressmen.
Yeah,
we won by sending a message to Pence, okay? That if they don't do as it is their oath to do, if they don't uphold the Constitution, then we will remove them from office one way or another.
His lawyer can fight to get him the special organic diet that he's requesting from jail, or say he was only following orders. All that's for a judge to rule on. What matters in terms of the impeachment is what role Trump's months of lies played in laying the foundation for the attack on our democracy as experienced by one of the people who did that. Chansley's attorney, Al Watkins, is here. Counselor, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
So your client has something he wants to say.
Yeah, I shared with you.
Can I just say something, right? it seems right. The QAnon shaman, from what I understand, he's a failed actor, right? So obviously he wanted to be some sort of star. So he's, he craves attention, right? And it seems to me that even behind bars, like oh, I'm not getting organic food, and then there's this bit that I was duped by Trump, and I've turned against Trump and all this. It just seems to be another means of attention seeking. Did you see what I'm saying? I mean, look at the way he was going about as the QAnon shaman. He went around shopping malls, screaming his fucking head off. It's all about, look at me, I want attention, I want attention.
Verbatim, the statement that was prepared by my client, dictated to me by my client, and he has asked that I cause it to be released to the world.
Would you like to read it?
I would love to read it, except I don't have it. You have it.
All right. I got you where I want you then, Al. So here are the main points, okay? I am deeply disappointed in former President Trump. He was not honorable. He let a lot of peaceful people down.
Yeah, he didn't give them pardons. Remember I just talked about the realtor took the private jet to the Capitol, right? She was demanding that Trump gave her a pardon before he left office. The thing is, these people are only sorry because they got caught, and are being punished, not because they did wrong. Basically, this is mitigation, right? This is them trying to, get a lighter sentence. This is not because they really are sorry.
I have to leave judging him up to others. Also says, I deeply regret and am very sorry I entered the Capitol building on January 6, 2021. I should not have been there, period. He should have led with that. So why does he believe that the president wasn't honorable and let down a lot of peaceful people?
One of the things that you've missed out and others have missed out on is the propaganda and the talk by Trump, which was never comprised of a complete sentence, ever. No subject, no verb, direct object followed by a period. That Trump talk, that propaganda was going on nonstop, not since November, but since prior to Trump assuming the office. Trump's tweets, his social media exploitation, what he said day in, day out, that we all permitted, included untruths, misrepresentations, out-and-out lies, not every now and then, every day, not once a day, multiple times daily. You couple that with a protracted period with COVID, social distancing, the absence...
Essentially, that a lot of these MAGA cultists basically lived in mum's basement because they're socially inept arseholes. I often found, that, I mean, they certainly were a part of a cult, but I've also known the odd libertarian in my time and libertarians can be very cultish, and it's like, I sort of concluded that these are basically, with libertarians, adolescently minded males, on the whole, who live in mum's basement, are socially inept and spend all their days wanking over Ayn Rand novels and trolling people on the internet. That's essentially, they don't get out and sort of like have what we would call a relatively, average life. And this is a consequence. I accept that, a lot of people were duped. I do accept that. But, including some very intelligent people, and it is easily done. I know you think, someone who's been to university, has a good family, good job, and lives in a nice place out in the suburbs. How can a person like that get duped into a cult? Well, it does happen. But I do get the feeling from this particular individual, as I said, they were pretty much a failed actor. But this is still part of the sort of... I don't know whether to trust what they're saying.
Of humanity around a lot of people who get their news from TikTok and from social media and from...
Yeah, now, that's true. Obviously, there is a lot of misinformation, on Twitter and YouTube. Don't consider, don't even consider Wikipedia as an authoritative, source. I don't know what is these days, to be honest. Not even someone like the BBC. You can't even trust them. How many times now, in the short run of this stream, have I, gone over BBC News stories, which have very dubious sources.
This internet coffee klatch, and it was a mess. It was a mess that created an environment on January 6th, which was not 1 month in the making, for people like Jake, for millions of Americans. They truly did hang on every word of their president, our president, the person that we permitted day in, day out to speak to us in ways and in fashions that simply weren't true.
Does Jacob now believe, Chansley, your client, that the election wasn't rigged? Does he now know that he was being lied to?
So this is a process. The answer is yes. The process, though, is not something that Jake is going through alone.
In other words, he's been deprogrammed. Right? Which is what's needed to happen on a mass scale. Actually, I've got a story about that we'll come to in a minute. But, yeah. The MAGA, we do call it the MAGA cult for a reason. It is a cult.
Process of unwinding from years of Trump, years of lies.
Make it sound like he's being deprogrammed from a cult.
Well, I've likened the entire thing to 1978 and Jim Jones down in Guyana. This is...
And, of course, Waco with the Branch Davidians. And there was also another one up in Oregon. They all dressed in orange, I remember. There's a documentary series about it on Netflix, but I forgot what the actual cult was called. As I said, we call it the MAGA cult for a reason.
Is very real for these people, and these are our brothers and our sisters and our families, and they're millions of Americans. The unwinding process is not going to be complete at the end of this week, whenever this impeachment trial...
No, there needs to be a mass deprogramming program, as there was after the Second World War in Germany. There was a denazification program, and that needs to there needs to be a de-Trumpification process in the United States. Now, I don't usually share stories from InfoWars for obvious reasons. It's full of fake news, full of racism, homophobia, transphobia, even though Alex Jones has a thing for trans porn. But there is an element of truth to this, Yes, those of us on the left do want a deprogramming and a re-education of Trump supporters. I don't know about brainwashed. So, of course, the whole re-education thing is a reference to the Wagyu Muslims in China being put into re-education camps, and can I just say that is wholly unacceptable. But what there does need to be in the United States is a deprogramming program. And I do think that, you know, America doesn't need to look in on itself about the kind of politics it has. When people, you know, obviously we do have political violence in this country. You know, I'll bring up Joe Cox, of course, murdered by a white nationalist. She was a Labour MP, for those who don't remember. But things like that are very rare here. Okay. But in America, you know, far right, you know, nutcases go on killing sprees, you know, with frequency. And of course, people like Alex Jones, who of course runs InfoWars, is in complete, you know, one of those who's in complete denial, and he would be because he fucking encourages this sort of shit, about, you know, the fact that this is, you know, that this is that this is happening essentially. Sorry, you know. Of course, these days, every time there's some far right killing spree, Jones and other figures on the far right will go, it's Antifa, you know. No, it's not. Yeah, the FBI themselves have said the greatest threat when it comes to domestic terrorism in America is from the far right. But yes, there does need to be deprogramming. I'm going to, you know, say that's actually that there's an element of truth here. So, you know, of course, you know, InfoWars and Alex Jones and David Icke and whoever the fuck else, of course, don't like it. Well, you know, that's what needs to happen. Now, I will leave on a happier note regards QAnon. This is an interview with a woman who sounds like she's being awoken to the fact she was lied to.
I had really lost all touch with reality. It was the worst day of my life. I was having a complete mental break. And really what had happened was I had fallen down the QAnon rabbit hole and fell hard, you know, and just lost it. I was completely triggered.
And after that moment, you then went home. You were still irrational, so much so that your husband called the police. We have some video of that too. You were just spouting crazy theories when the police showed up. You were clearly in distress, and they ended up having to take you in, I mean, for a mental evaluation, and I believe to a mental hospital. And so how did this happen, Melissa, that you fell so far down the conspiracy rabbit hole?
You know, I really became all consumed in the QAnon conspiracy theories because of a mix of fear, anxiety, depression, you know, uncertainty. It
can also be, I'm talking from experience here, it can also be as a deflection from your problems. I fell down the libertarian cult rabbit hole almost 20 years ago now, and I was involved with the libertarian cult for a few years. I mean, it's ridiculous because, you know, right-wing libertarianism is definitely not in my fucking self-interest. But the reason I did was because I didn't have the confidence to deal with gender dysphoria. I needed something to distract myself from that. And so libertarianism became all-consuming.
Consistency with the information coming out about the pandemic. I felt terrified. I was losing my business. I was watching people around me lose their business. I felt hopeless. I didn't know what to do. So I went to the internet. You know, it started innocently enough, you know, kind of poking around on spirituality and wellness and new age pages that, you know, are just things that I'm interested in anyway. And then, you know, as soon as the algorithm hooked me.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The whole QAnon conspiracy has attracted a lot of people who otherwise, you know, you'd think they're somewhat hippie-ish. You know, they're you know, they're into natural remedies and, you know, crystals and, you know, of course the QAnon shamans are vegan. Yeah, those kind of people who usually, you know, those are the kind of people I kind of like. Yet they're being sucked into supporting QAnon, which is basically, you know, enabling fascism.
It really only took a matter of weeks until I was in this terrifying echo chamber that really, you know, completely.
The other thing I'd say is, and people need to keep remembering this, the QAnon conspiracy theory originated, I think it was on 8chan, by an internet troll. Someone just posted something on 8chan, and a lot of gullible people believe that, you know, Donald Trump was here to save the world from a satanic, you know, paedophile ring, and which in itself is hilarious, considering one of his best friends was Jeffrey Epstein. If you can if Donald Trump is actually capable of actually forming friendships, when you think about it, but yeah.
Changed the way that I think and the way that I processed information. And what people saw happen in my garage that day, I mean, truly with my husband, who's my absolute best friend, is an ultimate act of love and selfless service for another person, because he had to make a very difficult choice that day, you know, to save my life. You know, he had given me an ultimatum, you know, it's this family, you know, or QAnon. And you know, because I had become so obsessed with it, the Save the Children messaging spoke so deeply to who I am as a person, and I just couldn't put it aside. It ruined me.
Right. So that's the end of another show, folks. It's really it's been a good one. Thanks to my fiance Kim for joining us for a bit. I will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. I'm probably going to get around to reacting to a Rose of Dawn video, but not the Rose of Dawn video which everyone else seems to be reacting to. So I will see you then. In the meantime, if you like this video, then please give it a like. Please give us a comment if you've got any feedback in the comment section, of course, down below. Please do share this video with your friends. Most important of all for me at the moment is please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Please, I'm begging you. Until tomorrow, stay safe and peace out.